All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Raphael Salaja. I'm here to talk to you about the rise of design engineering. So, some background on who I am. I'm a design engineer from Ireland. Worked with some of the top teams in the industry, Family, Ave Labs, Lens, Daybreak, just building the best software in the world. And now I'm at Warp, helping them build the best employee management system in the world. As a kid, I was always obsessed with the finer details and things. I was big into games, media, movies. I was always looking for the behind the scenes stuff, like trying to figure out how things worked behind the scenes and just knowing how things worked in general. I think that's what spurred me on to get a course in game development. And within that course was a module on web development. And that was where I figured out, wow, I can do so much more on the web. It's so much easier to build at scale, reach a bunch of people, because my objective from the start was just to make people smile. And I thought games could do that for me, but I think building on the web does that for me. So, taking a step back, I want you to think of like traditional teams. Most teams now, or in the past, were more so about people who like how things look and people just care how things work. And in between there is a gap. There's some stuff that one side knows that the other stuff doesn't know. There's different nuances that both of them have to try and conversate between. They don't speak the same language, they don't see eye to eye. And this gap in between is where quality goes to die. It takes a lot of work for a designer to hand off to an engineer that doesn't understand typography systems, design systems. Same way an engineer can't go to a designer, talk to them like, hey, we want this pagination system. We need design to be like this, this, this. So this gap is what a design engineer fills. There's no real single definition for what a design engineer really is, but at its core, it's someone who operates fluently with code and design, and they're someone who really refuses to treat them as separate concerns. So think of them as an interpreter between a designer and an engineer. They can see a design in Figma and they're able to see the code, how it looks like, what it's going to be like in whatever language they're using. As well as that, they can go to a backend guy who has a new API or something, and they're able to convert that mishmash of code into something beautiful. So in a real working environment, what do design engineers actually do? I'm going to use myself as an example. In Warp, I'm someone that's more so concerned with like the last mile of development. So I'm working with another colleague, his name is Arnie. He's also a design engineer. I'll touch more on what he does later. But really, I'm someone that's like, you give me a design, I'll fill in the gaps of like, where can I make this beautiful? Where can I make it that one step further? I can go in, add animations, add transitions, critique what's already been done, and create something beautiful at the end of it. My colleague on the other side, he's someone that's more interested in the weeds of things. He's like goes into design systems, creating component systems, making sure that the code base is as beautiful as the product itself, which is super needed in like scale and startups or even just big companies in general. You have to have that consistent code base that someone can come in and just basically build whatever they want. So this is kind of like the yin and yang of design engineering. There's a wide spectrum of us. We're not all the same. We have our strengths and weaknesses, but it's really that at the end of the day, what we care about is how the interface feels, making sure it's as high quality as possible, leaving no gaps, leaving no room for error. We want everything to be 110%. So you may be wondering now, like, how does a design engineer differ from like a front-end engineer, a back-end engineer, UI, UX designer? So it's a good question, but it's really like, say you're a front engineer, a designer comes to you, they say, here's the design, can you build this out for me? They lack the taste, which I'll talk on later. They lack the taste that a design engineer will have to make decisions on themselves, by themselves. So maybe they have a static design, which most Figma designers do. Not many do like actual spec out animations with them. So they just see that, they'll go in and be like, hey, we'll just make this, make this, and make this, and make this. They don't have that opinionated push to make things as good as possible. So they kind of like lack that trait that design engineers have. Yes, we both care about building the final product, but we make sure that final product is as good as it be. We don't have to rely on the design as a whole to be able to do that. For a full stack engineer, their skills are more broadly spread out. So they'll be in the back end making the design system, they'll put that into code, they'll take the designs as needed. So their skills are pretty spread out, same way a design engineer's skills are spread out, but they also lack that same depth that we'd go into. We get that second layer that most people don't see. We make sure we get those tiny interactions feeling right. That's something like a full stack engineer would like gloss over because they're just trying to ship a product. And for designers, it's much more simpler. Their work ends in Figma. Once they make the design, they can't really go and say, this is it. You can't browse the website in Figma. So someone like me, someone like Arnie, we can go in and design the whole website, but we know how to turn that into code. That's the beauty of a design engineer. We're able to use the tools we have at hand to create something, spec something out quickly in Figma, build a prototype, build everything. We skip that stage in between, the handoff. So that's the real distinction between us. Now you may be wondering, why do we actually need design engineers? So I think there's three main reasons. I'm going to outline them now. First is slop. We're in a world where there's so much slop in the world at the moment. AI is taking over. People are going and cursor clicking, make me a website, no mistakes. And it spits out something like this, purple gradients, just complete slop. And the average person, they know like, hey, this website, it's trash. They can feel the lack of human elements within it. Design engineers, we make sure stuff like this never happens. We want something that feels human, and that at the end of the day is what's going to differentiate between a good product and a special product. Something that people want to actually use versus something that people have to use. So, you have a question?
Yeah, Rafa, what are, other than purple gradient, some other tells that something is purely slop?
Okay, there's a lot of tells. One is scroll-driven animations. That's poorly done. Bad layouts, bad typography, mishmash of colors, bad copywriting. People can just feel this stuff. Like, even for example here, like just how the spacing between this and this, the center alignments, the random colors, there's no cohesiveness between the actual design. People can come in and see, well, not people can come in, but they can feel something's off. We'll talk more about what that something's off is later on. So moving on, the second part is taste. So I'm talking all about taste, and I'm going to make sure to explain what taste is, but I have here a simple demo. So we see two different interactions that's going to be at play here. If anyone wants to differentiate between what's going on here, I'd be open to any ideas. Yep.
The speed of the transition.
That's one.
There's a bit of layout shift in terms of
There it is. There it is. That's pretty much it. So you both have the right idea. What's going on in the first one is the state within is transitioning, of course. You can see the transition of the text, but the actual container itself isn't morphing with the shape of the content. So this is something that can be seen in a lot of apps. Most apps would mitigate this by making the button full width, so it doesn't have to manage the actual content. Other apps just don't do it at all. They just like skip the transition. So stuff like this is where a design engineer would see a spec. They'd see, hey, we have 3 different states of like a button. Say you have a loading state, in progress, say a complete state. How can we make this tiny interaction something that people can remember? This is where someone like me would be able to spot that. we'd go in and say, hey, this is the perfect time to add in this novelty, this cool feature that people will post about. They'll remember that app for this sort of stuff. And you can see this type of stuff in the best apps on the market, the ones that you use every single day. And that type of taste, that type of knowing when to add, is something that design engineers specialize in.
Question, Raphael? What are some example products or even flows that come top of mind to you that we could know right now that you think have taste?
That you can know right now that have taste? I think top of the list, because most people here have probably used linear, that's probably like the standard of like taste and knowing when to add enough of animation. Something that people can do, AI slop usually does, is add animation everywhere, adds random stuff everywhere. People can see when novelty is being overused, but apps like linear, apps like Adio, Stripe, those type of apps, they know when to add in a touch of sugar, is what I like to call it, add in that little sweetener to the product. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The next and third part is speed. So as a design engineer, as I was talking about before, you have to be able to adapt to different situations. For example, this is something that I worked on a couple of weeks ago. Basically, it's a sound lab I created from using the web sound API. And I'm someone that has no experience in sound design. I'm just a developer. But with the power of AI, I was able to use Claude to communicate with it and understand how to build something like this. Prior to this, I'd have to go do 2 weeks of research, figure out what the hell is a synthesizer, all this other stuff, and that takes so much time. But now I can do something like this in a matter of hours and just get it done. But also, this is the key part, I'm able to inject my own taste into it. So when it gave me this, it didn't look like this at all. It just gave me some ugly buttons, ugly animations, but you can see the stuff I've added to it, the different pops of color, the different morphing objects. It's that little layer, that's what makes it special. You can do something in a couple of hours, people can tell. But if you add that final touch, that final push to make it feel like an experience, that's what people remember. So this is the big one. What's taste? So taste is a controversial topic on online spaces. It's kind of a word that people throw out all around the place. But I think it's actually very simple to understand. So on the screen now is a picture of Rick Rubin. I'm just going to give a brief description of who he is. He's one of the biggest names in creative spaces. He has been in the rooms of some of the biggest songs ever made, Jay-Z, Beastie Boys, Red Hot Chili Peppers, the list goes on and on. But what people don't really know about him is like he's not a musician. Well, he can make music, but he's not like a talented musician. He's not on the drums doing everything. He's the guy that people go to say, hey, is this good or is this bad? People value his opinion on things. And as a design engineer, you kind of have to be that person. At Warp, I can receive design. And I have to be able to, with my own input, say, hey, let's take a step back. Let's rework this. Let's try something else. Let's experiment. You have to have that opinionated taste within yourself to be able to be that person in the room that turns something from something great into something special. So people think that taste is inherited, you can't learn it, and I'm super against this topic. So I'm gonna teach you some ways to be able to become tasteful in your own ways. So the first way is to study. When I was beginning, like I said, I was doing a game dev course. I had no experience in design, development, how to create beautiful interfaces. So what I did was I went to X, to Arena, all these different sources of information, and I just started looking at them, inspecting them, understanding what made them good and what separated them from other stuff that was bad. And after this, I just started implementing them in my own work, trying to copy what they did, like one for one. Then over time, I built this sensitivity in a way to what's good and what's not. I was able to see, hey, this typography is misaligned. This layout could be adjusted. This spacing looks wrong. People can learn this. It's something that it's not too hard to do. You just have to expose yourself to these different materials, and you'll be able to spot things pretty much everywhere. I'm going to throw up a quick example from actually Linear themselves. So 1 second, let me pull this up. So this is their brand new web page. So I'm going to run you through how I go about learning from others. So first things first, on load, we can see here they have this animation that fades in. They have this little stagger. In my head, I'm going, hey, I can use this in my own site. How can I use stagger? How can I display information? What that stagger does, it's bringing you slowly into that experience. It's making you remember, hey, this is the big part that we want to see. Let's look at the navigation now, because I spotted this when this website released. So I'm going to zoom into this. Tell me if it's visible for you guys.
Yeah.
So, perfect. I'm going to zoom closer into this. You're going to want to see this one. So I'm going to show you guys a question. Look at this transition here to the product. Let me actually scroll to the left a bit so you can get the full width. Do you guys notice anything? Anyone make a guess of what's going on or what I could be seeing? No? Someone?
Keeping the overall container in place, like not shifting that, like most websites do, but they're just transitioning the inside content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that way?
It's close, it's close.
Next.
You want to show something?
And then as you like, it's following the movement of your mouse.
Mm-hmm.
If you're moving right,
Okay.
it moves right. Or
Yeah,
left.
yeah, it does. Okay, that's actually good 2 observations, but I'm gonna throw something out that is actually super precise. If I zoom in some more, if I was to be on the team, this transition here, if you guys keep your eyes on this left-hand side,
Yeah.
that content is overflowing outside of the container. It's not actually, we have 2 containers here. We have the outside container and we have the inside container. Just keep your eyes on this. It might be hard to see on the screen, but if I transition from there, you can see it's kind of bleeding outside.
Okay, yeah, I see it now.
You see it now?
Now I see it.
So
Yeah.
stuff like this, like,
But that's bad, right?
that's bad. We don't want that. We don't want that. What I do is I'd apply some sort of like content visibility on that inside container. It's a problem I've like faced when building like stuff like this. But that type of stuff is something that comes through years of studying, building, just getting interactive with different apps, different websites, seeing what works, what doesn't. So honestly, guys, like most of the best sites, they follow the same practices, the same principles. It's really just seeing where they're being applied and using them yourselves. And then the next point is, like I said before, noticing. So this is another interactive experience. I'm going to play this video. I want you guys to try and figure out what's going on here. Is there something off? Do you see something that could be? I'll leave it going for a couple seconds. This one's pretty hard, so don't worry if you don't see it. Yep.
Might be wrong in imagining things, but is it the timing of the animation?
You got it.
This is
So
something that you use a lot.
yes, that's you got it. So these 2 on the edges share the same timing. The one in the middle, there I go again, slightly different. So you should be able, congratulations, you could be a design engineer, there you go. You should be able to see this. So imagine this is a small scale example, but if you have an app and it's like one side has different colors, one side has different animations, there's no coherency between them, people notice that. And that's what when people say, hey, this feels off. That's the thing that people don't know how to describe, but you need to be able to figure out. So when someone comes to you with like a website, a component, a design, you need to be able to go to them and say, hey, this is actually what's off. this is where you need to improve the animation, improve the typography, improve the layouts, whatever it might be. So nice work to you. And the third one is to build. So like I said before, I was big into copying. There's a book called Steal Like an Artist. That's kind of what you have to do. If you want to build your skills, copy the best. So this is an example from family.app. They have their own like crypto wallet app on the desktop. So I saw this like cool model. I was like, yo, that's some like cool stuff that I could like mess around with. So what I did is I took the overall wallet design also from the app, and I created this like cool transition. Change the colors, you can do whatever you want to it, edit the name. Basically, I'm taking inspiration. I'm trying to see what they're doing. When you're like looking at these websites, you want to be like, website on this side, inspect ML on this side. You want to see inside and try and really become one with the web, become one with the app, whatever you're building. Try and understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. Then you can relate it to whatever you're doing. So I have like millions of these examples where I'm just copying stuff, learning from others, and that builds that sensitivity I was talking about, that mental archive of, hey, I know when to use a spring, I know when to use an ease and curve, I know when to use a tighter letter spacing, all this sort of stuff. So hopefully those 3 steps, if you apply those, over time you'll start seeing your taste improving. Of course it's going to be bad at the start. Like if I was to pull up my old GitHub repositories from like 5 years ago, they look like an absolute mess. But you have to be that like self-critique. You have to be able to see others, critique them, but critique yourself. Use those critiques to improve yourself. So you may be wondering now, how can you yourself become or transition into being a design engineer? And I think it's personally like something anyone can do. It's not that hard in a way. It's just you have to really apply yourself. It's something that I feel like in a few years, most teams are going to consist of a big group of design engineers crafting, building. With AI, the advancements of that, it's going to be something that teams transition into. So say you're someone that's more on the design side. One thing I always say, like say in my work, if I'm presenting with a design, how quick can we turn this over? I'm always like, 80% of the battle is the actual design, 20% is the code. Because you can build, like most of the coding has been solved. People know how to cache, people know how to use states, all that sort of stuff. But the design, that's like creating something from scratch. You need to be able to adapt it to your situation. So if you're a designer, you actually have like a slight advantage. You have that eye that other people don't have, but you just need to learn how to put that into something that's real. So if I was in your steps, if I was in your shoes, I'd be really going into Claude and building what you're seeing. So any like AI cursor, try and get that design you created into something that's real. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged end-to-end app. You can start small, but over time you're going to start learning how, like when I build in Figma, I can visualize the code is going to look like. You need to be able to have that same eye for like a design. You need to be able to say, this is going to be the header, this is going to be what the HTML is going to look like, the React code, whatever you're writing. So that's what I'd be really going for. You'd have to be building, iterating, improving that technical aspect, because you have the hard part already. You have the design. That's the hardest part. You just have to be able to create that. And if you're an engineer, you also have the hard part done. Engineering is not easy. You can see from AI, the AI slop websites I was showing you earlier, whenever someone posts one, a week later someone's like, here, the entire code base, the entire database is public. You guys just like ruin a bunch of people's lives. So engineering is also pretty hard. So you have another easy avenue. You just have to train your eye. Like I said before, study all the different resources. You go to your favorite apps, whatever you're using. Just try and see like, hey, why are they doing this and why don't I do it? Let me start using that same like font style, that same button style, whatever they're doing, try and see why, and then whatever you build, try and implement that. at the end of the day, you learn from doing. And if you're not doing, then you're not learning. So that's pretty much it for that. Now we're going to round up, and I'm going to talk to you about what I think personally the future of AI, the future of design engineering with AI is going to be. So I think personally there's going to be a big shift, like I described before, in the necessity of quality, care, and love in the product. We're in the stage where so many products, like I said, was being built from just AI. Like someone can go into Curse right now, say type new website, it's done. But they don't have that same feeling, that same care. We're going into what I feel is another renaissance. Like with the rapid growth of AI, there's so much to create, but people want something that's created by humans, that has that human feel. Design engineers are kind of leading that way. We're building experiences that people love, they come back to. They want to feel, they want to enjoy that experience. And with AI as well, those experiences can get built really quick. We can learn a lot. We can like I showed before, that sound, I know nothing about sound. I was able to create something with sound over just a few hours of conversation. So we're in a really special time at the moment. We're at the time where you can do what you want. You can create that app you always wanted, but you can also now build that with style, build that with quality, and build that with care. So that's pretty much the talk, guys. If you have any questions, I'm open to the questions, and yeah, thank you for listening. Yep.
When was a time that your taste was wrong?
Oh, that's a good one.
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear.
Yeah, he asked, when was a time my taste was wrong? That's a very good loaded question, but it's something that I've actually been through in my early days as a developer. At my time at Lens, there were some times where I suggested something that was really off. I was big into blurs when I was younger. I really wanted to get a lot of I wanted stuff to feel like it was morphing. And my manager at the time, he said, this is not what we're looking for in this app. We want something that's sharp, that's snappy. So that opened my eyes to understanding what the product is. You have to learn what you're building. If I'm building something that's, for example, with Warp, we're building the best employee management system. People are using this system to get stuff done quick. They want something that's going to work fast, feel fast, and operate fast. So if I'm adding in cool spinners, it's cool, but people are going to get bored of it. It's like that unskippable cutscene video game. You're just pressing X to get to the next part. So yeah, that was one part. So nice question. Anyone else? Yo, yeah, you next then.
You kind of hinted at it, but I'm curious, how, it's kind of cliche, I guess, but how you're thinking about tooling, how much time are you spending in Figma versus directly jumping to code, and kind of your outlook on the future of that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So that really comes down to two things: the person and as well as the environment you're working in. For my own personal stuff, I like to be in Figma and know the intricacies of what I'm going to build. It depends what I'm building. I'm working on apps to the side. I want to know what that app is going to look like. I think I'm building for a whole company. It kind of slows me down a lot, but it's how I like to build. But when I'm at work, if I'm trying to get stuff done, most of the time you don't really need to be in Figma. It's the Figma. I like to look at Figma if I need something that is kind of more technical. It's kind of more out there. We want to build a redesign, a rebrand. We need that Figma board to really pull from. And with the tools in Figma, like Figma Dev, you can take the values, the variables, and all that, and then I transition that into code. So, like I said, it depends on the person. It depends on the environment you're in as well. A few more. We'll go here, then I use them. So you first.
I guess my question is about motivation. How do you stay away from AI slop? In the sense that core code, etc., is a shortcut, and you're saying that you have to develop your own taste and keep developing it as design trends kind of go. I'm not sure whether.
So how do I stay motivated to build the best to make sure? Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, really, personal desire. I want my, like, even when I'm talking to my colleagues, I'm always saying I take pride in whatever I do, and that pride resonates through the work. If you don't really care, if you're like 50% like, hey, I just want this to work, it's gonna look like crap. But if you actually put that 110% into whatever you're building, you look at whatever you build, I want you to look at it as a representation of yourself. If you have to build a to-do app, make it as good as you can. If you have to build a fully end-to-end app, make it as good as you can, because when people look at that, they're looking at you. So you want that to resonate with how you feel and how you look like. So that's how I do. Yeah.
So I have a question. I feel like one of the things you do really well is balancing form and function.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in my experience working with a lot of designers over the years, I think often designers can fall into too much in love with just the form and sometimes ignore function. And I think maybe one way to think about design engineering is you're bringing the function more, or these two kind of things more together into a synthesis. I'm curious, like, if you think about that actively, because I think when you talk about, like, for example, the example you gave around if it's an app and you add this beautiful, like, spinner, it could be beautiful, but if you have to see it over and over, it's gonna get tiring. How do you develop that in yourself? How do you kind of, like, not fall into, have you always been this way? Is it something you have to, like, practice and develop? I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, it's something that you kind of just learn through experiences and feedback. Feedback is something that you have to, it's gonna come eventually. But I'm always thinking, like, sometimes, like, the best animation is no animation. Like, people sometimes value speed over form, and that speed is in a result, the form. Like I gave the example before, I wanted to add that blur. I thought it was beautiful. But then you realize people can go through that experience 1,000 times. The first time it's cool, but the 1,000,000th time, it's like, bro, come on. So I'm always thinking, especially now that I'm really into product, I'm thinking how many times is someone gonna see this? And what's that relative impact to their experience? On a web page, on like a landing page, go ahead, do what you want. Even still on a landing page, don't go too crazy. There's a fine balance, but you want to see, like, you want to direct people's attention. It's almost like arts. It's pretty much an art at this point. You want to make sure you get people to see what you want them to see, feel how you want them to feel. So that loading, that linear stagger animation, it's cool, yeah. It shows only when you reload the page, and it's really only shown on that section. The rest of the page loads instantly. But because of that first introduction, you get a feel of elegance, and that flows throughout the app. If the rest of the site was like that, firstly, it's going to slow down the experience. Secondly, people are going to get bored. Thirdly, it's going to get repetitive. You want to think of novelty form on, like, a graph. So imagine form and function on a graph, and I think of it as almost like exponential in a way that you want to use it. So if you keep using something, eventually people are just going to get fed up. It's not going to feel fun. It's not going to feel novel. In games like Mario, the star, it only shows up, like, in one place in the level. But people are always chasing that star. I want to see, oh, where's that star? Where can I find it? So you want to kind of think like that. Think of, like, making stuff feel necessary, feel needed. So that's kind of how I look at it.
For the future design engineer, what level of degree of separation do you see between you and the end user to actually get the feedback from that end user? In a organization, do you expect that feedback will come through the product manager, or you have the ability to have that direct connection with
the customer?
The customer, yeah.
So you're asking me, like, how is that feedback going to come in, like, the future?
Yeah.
I think it's
or now, right, in a healthy organization that propels design engineers to do a better job, because that part, the customer feedback is critical to.
It's critical, yeah.
To build something great and also to build something.
Yeah.
Fast.
I think it's for like the example of the linear site, you can see the posts that they posted. Oh, here's a new website. People are already commenting like, "Yo, this is broken. This is broken." I think that feedback loop is kind of going to be vital. Like I said, we're trying to build for humans, so whatever a customer wants, that's really what we should be building for. We might see something that's like super cool. We might be super opinionated something, but if the masses, if like the end user doesn't feel that, we need to adjust. We need to start thinking like the end user. And with design engineering, that's pretty much what we're like asked to do. We have to think, hey, person A is going to feel this, person B is going to feel this. How do we make sure they both get the best experience as possible, while also building the best products, the most good looking, the most quality products as possible? So I hope that answers the question. Okay. One more? No.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of product designers or a lot of designers
Mm-hmm.
because they have this sense of like taste and almost perfectionism. They can end up taking a long time
Mhm.
to get something done.
Mm-hmm.
But you've talked a lot about, at least on the engineer side of your brain, you need a lot of feedback. You need to ship something. You have to get that feedback. So how do you think about pace and when something is ready to go out versus maybe in your instincts you want to perfect it and it's not done, right? Let's say that design page doesn't have that type of feeling, but it needs to get out.
It needs to
right?
get out,
So
yeah.
how do you think about balancing that sense of like perfection and taste with needing to ship something?
Gotcha. It's a difficult balance. Like I said, you have to take pride in your work. So what that entails as a developer, as a design engineer, you have to really think, how can I make this, say you have a 2-week deadline. You can't start thinking of, let's animate the whole page, just have everything work. You have to really focus on key details while making sure everything works. I gave the example of this full stack engineer. They get the whole stuff done, but they forget like little parts. You want to make sure you get that little part in while still keeping to pace. Most companies, they'll probably like set 1-week deadlines. If you don't get it done, it's going out regardless. So you don't really have the power as a design engineer to stop that flow, because at the end of the day, time is money. Time wasted is money lost. We want to get products out in a quick pace, and like I said, with the AI, we're able to speed up that development flow. So you really want to go in and say, hey, these are the key parts that need to work. If I was like designing I don't know, let's go for a form or something. First things first, the form has to work. I'm gonna always dedicate an extra bit of time, maybe 2 days for refinement. I'll spend 1 day deciding these are the key elements that need to work. This could be cool to add in. That cool part, let's make sure you get that in. These are extras. The extras are not critical. The cool part is critical. The main form is critical. So that type of thinking, it comes through experience as well. It's hard to understand like, hey, this is what I need to get done, but you can feel when something is great and could be greater, but you don't want to release nothing. People can spend, I know myself, I'm working on a lot of stuff. You can spend like a lot of time just thinking of something and not getting it out. But if it's in your head, but if it's not there, no one's going to use it. So really spend time on prioritization and then optimizing the prioritized. And that's how you actually separate yourself from people that just ship. So, one more question? Yeah.
I'd really be curious to get your perspective. This is more practical, but like from a portfolio perspective for a design engineer, like is it a focus on like these micro interactions, for example, that is really the key, or is it more about like showing you mentioned working on specific projects, or like obviously a combination of both? But like, what do you like think about for yourself, and what do you look for when you're like looking at portfolios?
Good question. So for me, I'm big into showing people that I love what I do. That's really a good determinator from someone that just like copies, if in a way, because everyone can have a portfolio that's they have a bunch of micro interactions, but they don't actually have that feeling of like, hey, I'm really doing this all the time. I'm someone that's always trying to get something else, show something, try and build something, try something, experiment. So show all your experiments. Even on my portfolio, I still have stuff from like years ago, but people can see that progression, and I think that's what people resonate towards. They want to see that care you put into yourself, that dedication you took to get to where you are as well. So, if I was in your case, I'd just be posting whatever you do. If it's a new component you made, if you copied something, show the reference, show your final product. If you go through my portfolio, it's myname.com, you can see everything I do. I'm also working on like my UI.wiki. I'm just sharing information, try and give back to the community, just teaching people whatever people want to learn. I'm big into giving knowledge and spreading that out so people can build great stuff together. So yeah, if you want to build a portfolio now that stands out, in my opinion, just everything you're doing, just put it there. Like, people want to read that stuff, they want to see it. They don't want to see just random stuff, random components. Just put yourself into your portfolio, and that's going to stand out. So,
Final question.
one more question.
I'll do a final question.
Go ahead.
Do you have any hot takes on design engineering, on engineering?
Let me think. I have a lot of takes. I think that, I don't even think this is a hot take, but honestly, I think that a lot of these, okay, how can I say this in a good way? I think a lot of these generated websites that people ship out, they get found out, of course. I think that if I was to be in charge, I would just like ban all of them. I'm not a big fan of all that stuff. Another hot take, I suppose, is like scroll hijacking. I hate that stuff. I hate taking the control away from the user. Another hot take is, I mean, I'll give too many hot takes. I think two is enough.
Great.
Thank you, Raphael.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.